Welcome to Tunnel Vision by USCFootball.com. We are in the studio on this lovely Sunday evening for another episode of Tunnel Vision. I'm Riley Sager alongside Ryan Abraham and Shotgun Spratling. Guys, how are we feeling today?
Feeling all right. You started the show with a shot of me. So welcome Shotgun, who's in here from the West Coast, and Riley, first time.
I'm from the West Coast now?
Well, the East Coast.
On
On the West Coast from the East Coast. And Riley, first time hosting Tunnel Vision. So, yeah, this is good. So, you know,
Ryan, we just had to give you more airtime.
That's okay. I like the airtime. I like seeing my face up there. But we'd much rather see you, but that's okay. You know, but like, welcome to the show, Riley. And I don't know if you want to. So Riley's our new intern, started doing stuff in the spring. If you want to give people a little quick background of what you're doing, and we'll get into the show.
Yeah, sophomore at USC, helped out with spring practice, doing instant analysis, video editing, that kind of thing. But like Ryan said, first time in the studio doing Tunnel Vision, super excited. We're live on YouTube and Facebook, so make sure live comments, drop them in there. We'll try to get them on screen. Also, live calls today. Yes. Hopefully we can get some in the queue, and we'll try to get to those.
5124-TUNNEL is our number if you want to call in live. So we're going to try to do some live calls, which they're always fun.
They're always interesting. We'll say that.
Okay.
5124-TUNNEL. See what you got. Keep it brief, but we want to hear what you have to say.
We do, and it should be a lot of fun. I'm going to share this. If you're watching on Facebook, we'd love to hear from you. I'm sharing this on my Facebook feed now, and I see there's a lot of comments already on YouTube. So if you have a question too, we'll Riley can start and we'll get to it at the end. Live calls will usually break into the show. When's the last time you were on? Someone in the comments said, we haven't done a show for a while. We did one last week after spring ball ended. So
it's true.
But it's the first time Riley's been on. First time you've been on in a while.
I mean, Riley left out an important thing in her introduction. She is a native Georgian as well.
Oh, yes.
So go Braves for
Go
all
Braves.
the Dodgers fans in the comment section there. But yeah, now just expanding the GA to LA, brand. Don't let Gavin Morris try to tell you that he's the one that was the originator of that, just because he stopped by Atlanta for a couple years.
Oh, okay.
We don't agree on restaurants. I'm Chick-fil-A. You said Zaxby's?
Yeah, definitely Zaxby's. But I don't think anybody here will even know Zaxby's.
I think I've had it before, but they don't really have it around here, right?
No, definitely Southern.
No, but we can agree on the Braves, at least that much.
Steve in the chat says smash the like button. Yes, please. If you could subscribe on our YouTube channel at Inside Troy, or if you're on the Facebook page, you want to like our channel over there, subscribe to it. There's a little notification bell if you want to know when we're going live, because sometimes we don't know. But I put this earlier. I guess I could have put it up yesterday. But yeah, we've planned on doing this for a while. Riley's helped out with the instant analysis videos. If you saw on our YouTube channel, she's been doing those instant analyses with Connor. We saw her get better and better as the spring progressed. Now we just threw it all at her. Not only is she hosting the show, but like producing it. Like if you see maybe you want to show the overhead view or whatever. But there's a whole lot of screen stuff for her to do on the screen. So we'll see how it goes. Like right now she has her YouTube channels up with the different thing. But
Here's Ryan.
Yeah. So you want to get rid of that?
Yeah, there we go.
She got it. So it's the first time doing it. There's a lot going on, and I thought Jack did a really good job. I'm sure Riley's going to as well. Do you think Jack's jealous? He's like, damn, I wish I was there doing it.
He's it's Sunday, so his baseball game is probably over for the day. So he's probably kicked back watching right now.
Probably relaxing.
Yeah. But Jack came in as a sophomore. Riley's coming in as a sophomore, so we might get 3-year run with Riley before she goes on to fame and fortune.
Gotta carry on Jack's legacy.
Yeah,
you never know. The transfer portal's out there.
Oh, that's true.
That's what they were joking about last week. They were like, is Riley going to transfer?
No.
I mean, you never know in this day and age. It just seems like there's so many people that go into the transfer portal. Some people go into the transfer portal. They commit to a school. They decommit. They commit somewhere else. Then they still go back to their original school for a couple more weeks, and they enter the transfer portal again. I am talking about Chasen Johnson, who just committed to USC again today. What a whirlwind spinny thing for a man with a unique name.
He does have a really unique name, and that's a unique. His journey is unique. Maybe not as unique as some of the other.
That one's pretty good.
It's a pretty good one.
All in one semester.
You have to try to make it one that you would comment about. Yeah, there's been a lot of weird ones with that, but it's part of a increased recruiting effort. I think a lot of it, and we're going to talk about this, like the high school side. USC has the #1 class and all that. We talked to Chad Bowden, and he said they're going to major in high school recruiting and minor in the portal. This is one of those this is his minor in German or wherever he wants to minor in. But getting I think from a position of need, you wanted to bring in another defensive back like that. But someone that this is sort of like one of those things where I'll come up with an analogy for this. But you were talking like USC was getting good at recruiting or like they were just starting to get hot. It's like the real estate market is starting to get hot, and you're about to buy a house, and you're like, I'm not sure. And then the market goes crazy. You're like, I should have bought the house thing. Like, I feel like that's what's going on with Chasen Johnson. He was like, I don't know. And then you see like, USC is actually doing well and trying. Okay, I should probably go there. Like, I don't know. You don't agree with that one?
I mean, maybe. I mean, there's a lot more variables to it than that, obviously. I think that it does play in that he has seen the track record of what USC has done, maybe just this spring. But the big one is that Trojans Reed, who was his defensive backs coach at UCF, is now at USC. So I think that is the big thing. It will be his cornerbacks coach again. So I think the relationship there is what helped land him back with a commitment to USC after committing somewhere else. Decommitting from there. Well, actually, I don't even think he decommitted from SMU. But just going back to UCF, and I guess he went through the spring there, new coaching staff, because obviously Gus Malzahn left there, and decided, Trojans Reed, his position coach is gone. Maybe I'm just going to follow my position coach to a school that I was already committed to for at least a couple of days. But he's a kid that, when he committed the first time, looked at it and said, this could be a really good get for USC because he's a talented guy with multiple years of eligibility remaining, a guy that's played a good amount already as a young guy, so he could come in and could compete for a starting spot. Now, ideally, you would have got him in the winter window just so you can bring him in and have him potentially be able to battle for a spot in the spring, but the fact that he does already have a relationship with Trojans Reed already knows what he's getting in him, then T. Reed can work with him and potentially get him caught up over the offseason before he gets to fall camp.
I like Reed a lot, and I got to talk with him. We're going to get into the media brunch in a little bit. We're going to talk about that because we got to talk to 12 assistant coaches on Wednesday. I pretty much had like a 20-minute one-on-one sit-down with Trojans Reed, and just super impressive guy. But you could see why, if you were playing for him before, you're like, I think I could go play for him again. But good, big get for USC, position where you kind of needed some depth and needed some help. But the journey for Chasen was a little bit different, but they got him now, and I think it's a good move. But like you said, you'd rather have had him in the spring window, for spring football if you could have.
Beggars can't be choosers, and that's the position where USC needed to add some depth. So I think I think this is a good pickup for USC because it fills a need, adds more competition. The window is already closed. The transfer portal window is already closed, so no one else is going to go in that was in the cornerback room this spring. So I think it gives you an opportunity to build a little bit of depth there and have someone that can compete for a spot and should be able to jump right in. And with that familiarity already with the position coach, then he should be able to catch up, I think, a little bit quicker than you would anticipate.
Yeah. All right. So that's in the transfer portal side, but most of the heavy lifting has been done for high school recruiting aspect. 4 days in a row, USC picked up a new commitment. It was a pretty good stretch of USC already had the #1 class in the country. So this is the recruiting class of 2026. #1 class in the country. I think is it 27 commitments right now? And like the closest, I think Notre Dame is the
27.
closest. Yeah, closest with 14. Gerard, on the Composite 2-Star Recruiting podcast, talks about some of the point numbers you want to get to, and USC's already in that range, like 295 points or whatever. So I know there was issues with USC getting off to an early start in recruiting and like losing some of those guys. This definitely feels different, and we'll kind of get into, Shotgun's looking around. The Beach Life Festival is going on, right? Like literally you can see it out of like the window. So it's a big festival. This is day 3 of the festival. So we got a little music in the background. I don't know if people can hear that or not. Was it distracting you a little bit?
No, I'm just trying not to sneeze, so I was looking for my exit if I needed to there. But yes, USC, tons of commits already. They have definitely done what Chad Bowden did when he was at Notre Dame, is stocking up early. And he mentioned this, previously it's kind of like, okay, is this the right strategy? Is this not? And then he talked about this. I don't know on which podcast that he was on recently, but he talked about how he wanted them to build that family environment so that they have those relationships when they get to. And hey, now if you have a relationship with, okay, Brendan Lockhart's kind of got a relationship with all the DBs. Okay, if things don't go as well as USC fans would hope this season during the regular season, then you might still be able to keep more recruits than you anticipated because they already have that family environment. They're on a group thread. I was out at Mission Viejo at the Under Armour camp today. Ton of kids you could see the friendship, the camaraderie they already have built, them talking up each other. Chase Denise, who's a kid from San Diego, offensive lineman, and Deshaun Rideau, a running back. Deshaun Rideau makes a really nice catch on one, and Chase Denise had just finished up his interviews, kind of go grabbing his bag, and he's shouting him out from the end zone.
Yeah.
Those type of things where in the past, if you were wide receiver, you might have Julian Lewis's number. If you were at some other position, maybe not.
Probably not, yeah.
And he was supposed to be the centerpiece of the class. So I think that there's just definitely a different vibe to this group and the recruiting class. And that's also what happens when you shop local and you go and look to recruit locally and try to, to stock up on the talent that's in Southern California versus trying to cherry pick from all over the country. Because how many times is a kid from Texas going to have a relationship already with someone from Maryland? Or whatever it may be. Whereas, hey, you go to rival schools, or hey, you might have played against each other for ages. You might have gone to the same elementary school. We don't know. You may have played on the same youth league team. Or if there's some random occasions, like Brandon Lockhart housed Malachi Lee for a little while he was in Southern California. Those random things, that's not happening when you're trying to spread a wide net across the entire country versus being more centralized in Southern California.
Yeah, it's a big deal overall seeing what USC's done on the recruiting trail, and I don't think it's a coincidence that you completely rework the personnel staff. And there's a lot of the organization. The level of organization is impressive. The level of focus on local recruiting is impressive. And I know people like to talk about, well, Oregon had all this money and stuff. Last year, USC had money. They just were terrible money managers. They didn't utilize it very well. This year, you still have the resources, and you got to give props to the athletic department, House of Victory, everyone from, raising the money and getting those people in there, getting those resources in there, but then having the wherewithal how to use it. And I think the level of organization has been the most impressive. The people that I've talked to, and from just what we've seen, and the results are making a lot of sense. USC might not finish with the number one class, I don't know, but the way they've come out, you don't feel like a guy like Tom from Mater Dei is he's been around the program a ton. Going into Oregon, and he's this 4-star, 5-star kind of defensive lineman that for years Oregon has taken those guys. He's been around USC spring football, you read the body language or whatever, it doesn't look like he's going anywhere. Yeah. And I think some of it's going to be tied to results on the field. You want to make sure that you don't have some kind of disaster out there. But this doesn't feel like some 5-star tackle from Georgia that just loved his visit with Eric Henderson and decided to commit and then change his mind a few weeks later. That's not the feel here. And, USC was already on a roll. We can talk about the last 4 days with the 4 different guys, a couple receivers. What do we have? An offensive lineman and a corner and
a 5-star.
5-star offensive line, which is another one. You talk about Tom. Hey, you need a big defensive tackle, defensive lineman to be part of this class, a local offensive line. Well, with Pepe, you got he's cousins of a guy on your team, all the way from IMG Academy out in Florida, and to get a 5-star offensive lineman, that just hasn't happened for USC in quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's been since 2017 when you had Austin Jackson. 2017 class was stacked for USC. You had, 5 offensive linemen in that. You got Jalen McKenzie late, and all 5 of them become dudes for you.
Yeah.
Elijah Vera Tucker becomes a first-round pick as well. You have Brett Nealon, who locks down the center for you for a while, and Andrew Voorhees, who becomes a draft pick as well. So you have 5 guys that all got shots in the NFL. Now, Brett Nealon, obviously, his was cut short. He's coming off the ACL injury, or not the ACL, the Achilles injury in the bowl game, so didn't get a full-time shot there. Don't know if he's necessarily pursuing that again this year or not, but you had 5 guys in that one class who were fantastic, but that's the last time. That's 2017. You haven't had, outside of Jonah Monheim, you haven't had a big-name offensive line recruit since. You had 1 4-star, that was Jason Rodriguez.
Oh, yeah. That
And
didn't last. Yeah.
Jonah Monheim was only a 3-star. So, he was the best one, but there's been a bunch of, okay, they're going to grab this guy. I could see maybe some traits there. He's got some size, but okay, the guy that has size doesn't move as well, and the guy that moves well doesn't have the right size.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of things that they were hoping and wishing on that things would come together. It's just different when you get a 5-star offensive lineman. I feel like the hit rate on 5-star offensive lineman is the highest of any position. It feels like, because those are guys we can tell they have the body size, they move well with their weight. Now, will they end up being the first overall offensive tackle picked? Maybe not, because it is also a position where guys can pop up out of nowhere. Transition from tight end, or was a guy that played volleyball in high school and suddenly puts on a bunch of weight, and you have to see how the body. There's a lot of different paths to becoming a top end offensive tackle in the NFL draft, but in college, the 5-stars usually pan out. It feels like to me, and so I think getting someone like that to be a potential franchise left tackle it's a complete difference maker. This class goes from, hey, they're number 1 class, and they got Xavier Griffin, who is a dynamic pass rusher, linebacker, can do a little bit of everything. But to me, getting a true trench tank offensive lineman, and even, Tom, as you mentioned, like, that's a difference maker recruit as well. But getting one on the offensive line when that is a position where they have struggled so consistently to find the right guys coming in, which is why they've gone to the transfer portal consistently, and it's worked at times, and it's also led to 2 years ago where everything it did not work out at all.
Yeah.
As far as the gelling and everything. Now you bring those guys in, and he can work with the guys he's going to play beside for the next 3-4 years potentially, and I just think it's a much better path to having a guy that becomes a consistent performer for you. And Elijah Page was another 4-star. I did forget that they picked him up, but that's been about it. So and Elijah Page, you see. 4-star guy, look, he's panning out a lot better than a lot of the 3-star guys that we've seen leave the program over the last few years. So I think that's a huge recruitment, a huge commitment, and you're bringing him back home. So there is also the allure there. He's from Long Beach, so the fact that you can bring him back home, he's been away from home. He's experienced that at IMG. Now you get a chance to bring him back to Southern California, and he has the connection, as you mentioned, with family, Keenyi Pepe being on the team. So I just think there's a lot of things that make this a good fit for him to come back, but also it's a huge pickup for USC because it is a position where they have struggled so mightily for. That's what class are we in? 2026?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
9 years. That's crazy that it's gone that long.
Yeah, and Pepe, I think when I was in Hawaii for the Polynesian Bowl, there was a lot of talk. USC was just they haven't got rolling yet, in the recruit, and I think the talk around Pepe was like it wasn't even like considering like USC kind of thing. So to go from that in January to he's committed now is a big, and it shows you how much of a difference it made. And making hires like that, the resources that you put into the personnel department with Chad Bowden and that whole staff, it's paying dividends right away. Like literally when we were in Hawaii, all we did was talk recruiting. Everyone that you would go around, Brandon Huffman, Greg Biggins, whoever, like all the guys that know what's going on. There was not really a thought that USC was going to be really in it for Pepe, and now he's a commit. That's crazy.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that knowing these from Southern California, the P was like, we got to get this guy. We got to get this guy. And for a long time, it's been like you don't want to just break everybody's hearts immediately and be like, they're not even going to be in the running for that guy, even though there's this connection. Like it should make sense.
Yeah,
and that's how it's been for some prime positions in the past, but. This time, the way they have been able to close the gap on so many players, and this is a great example, as you mentioned. That was what, January?
Yeah, that was in January.
In 4 months.
Yeah.
And like when he shows up for the Trojan Olympics. He shows up, and we didn't know that he was going to be there. It wasn't like that wasn't a planned visit. He just wanted to be back. He wanted to experience it. That tells you a lot. Versus, if you want to take it back a little bit, Josh Connerly everyone felt like was kind of a lock for USC. And what happens when he makes that last visit? He just suddenly pops up at Oregon.
Yeah.
And that's how you tell the difference. USC couldn't close on Josh Connerly, and that he becomes a draft pick, I don't know, first, second round this year. And, he could have been USC's franchise left tackle, had all the makings there. They couldn't close the deal on that one. This time, they're not in the running, and they closed the deal. That tells me a ton about the work that support staff that Chad Bowden and his crew are doing, because they're in a ton of fights, recruiting battles that they weren't even in before. Tom is another great example. Now, sure, they're spending some money, but as you said, they've had money in the past.
Yeah.
And they just haven't been efficiently using it the best ways. Whereas this recruiting class, now we'll see if they can hold it all together and how the season kind of plays out. But right now, it is the number one class. It will finish as the number one class at this rate for sure. If they don't have any decommitments, it will definitely be the number one class. Like they're just balling right now on the recruiting trail, and they're getting not only they're getting the 5 stars, but then you go and that's technically a out-of-state recruit, though there is that connection. He is from Long Beach. Then you go, was it the next day they went and got Elbert Hill, the cornerback?
So Elbert Hill was Friday. So Pepe was Thursday.
So the next day.
4-star quarterback Elbert Hill was Friday. Saturday they get the wide receiver Luc Weaver. And on Wednesday it was Roderick Tezeno, right?
Tezeno?
Tezeno, yeah.
So, yeah, you get 2 wide receivers that kind of the bookend the high school recruits. But Elbert Hill is a guy that's out of the area, and you go and you grab him from out of Ohio. So right out of the backyard of Ohio State. He said that Ohio State was the runner-up for him, and he was able to go USC was able to go and pluck him from there. So now you're concentrated your recruiting efforts in Southern California. And then you branch out. Like that's the game plan. That should have been the game plan from the very beginning. Don't know why it wasn't for 3 years. But that's the game plan that works. That's the one that's worked for ages in, whether it's here, Urban Meyer at Florida, Urban Meyer going to Ohio State, someone going to Texas, like Steve Sarkisian. Like, you start local if you are in a hotbed of talent. And then you go and you start cherry picking and grab them, rather than saying, we just got to look all around. And part of it is they didn't have the connections to Southern California, and now they have some more of those with bringing in Chad Savage, his local connections. So they've flipped the script completely, and you have to give a ton of credit, if not all the credit, to Chad Bowden and his staff. Max Steneker has been another one that a lot of people have mentioned. Dre Brown, Zaire Turner, like all that whole crew that's come in, they've completely changed things, and USC was on the lips of a lot of people today out at the Mission Viejo Under Armour event. Whether it be the players, chatting with them, after they were done, or just other, other recruiting analysts and stuff that aren't covering USC. Man, USC's killing it. USC's doing this. Like, people that are at Oregon sites talking about, normally this would be one that we think Oregon would lock up, but now USC's kind of in every battle, it feels like. So, these just things I overheard from, people from other networks and whatnot. So, like, USC is completely changed the game in this 3 or 4 month period since they hired that support staff. It's just been phenomenal the way things have flipped.
Yeah. Like the Undertaker gif, we're just like waking up from the dead, like, USC recruiting is back. Like, forget, like, USC was more of the get all the guys that are like highly ranked and don't utilize them well, Then they started not getting those guys, and you're like, hey, wait, it was better to get those guys and fail than to like not get them at all and just see them going to Oregon. So it's changed, and I think the game has changed, and I give credit to the athletic department and the whole staff for changing along with it and using the resources and being able to play this new game. This is a very new game, and you can still use a lot of what USC has for like the base of recruiting, but you also needed to have this other portion of it. Now they're doing it all together, where you're building the relationships, you have the resources, you can put good packages together for these guys and sell LA and sell the kind of NIL deals you can get outside of LA, the stuff that Caleb Williams was doing, stuff that maybe you don't get in Lincoln, Nebraska or Tallahassee, Florida. You can do stuff in LA, but also, everything else that goes along with USC, the draft picks, the Heismans and all that.
Yeah, you went from being the Yankees or Red Sox who could just throw money at any issue. And by that, I don't necessarily mean USC throwing NIL money, but the fact that you're in a hotbed of talent. There's all these extra factors that you have the working in your advantage, with the weather and all these things that you mentioned. You can just throw the money if you're the Yankees or the Red Sox. Well, the Dodgers come along and they're like, what if we did that, but also we're really good at talent evaluation.
Oh, yeah.
And we're really good at figuring out ways to save or to utilize money better. That's become USC right now. They have all the built-in advantages of being in Southern California, where there is a ton of talent, and now they are attacking the problem with a full-blown mindset, like that they are in. They're in the middle of the Midwest where they have no recruiting advantages, and they're attacking in efficient ways that are leading to this number one class right now.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of recruiting in Southern California, Shotgun, you touched on it a bit. The Under Armour Next Camp. You were on your way back just now before the studio. Is that right?
Well, I stopped by USC winning baseball series against UCLA.
Okay.
You want to throw 5 minutes in there, Ryan?
Had to throw.
Not 5
had
minutes.
to touch on
Riley,
baseball.
you're fired now. You can't go to baseball with him because that's all
baseball.
he'll talk about. He already
I
did a
have the
Dodger
power.
analogy.
I can always mute you, Shotgun.
That's
Now I have muting
now you're back.
ability.
See, Riley's back.
Yeah. So, I mean, we weren't there at the camp. Just what was the environment like? I'm curious.
Yeah, like I said, I think as far as environment, well, first, it was raining this morning. What is this, Ryan? I come to Southern California not for rain. I got poured on last week at George Mason. Like, I literally had to buy a shirt on the way to a second game that I was going to because the game got rained out, and my shirt was absolutely drenched. I come here, I expect nice sunshine. It was that on Friday.
It rained yesterday morning too. I was coaching beach volleyball for this LA Strong event in Santa Monica, and they were just doing and it was raining. I'm like, we were looking at our phones. It said 0% chance of rain. Like, it's raining right now. Like, I don't know what to tell you, phone, but you're wrong.
Even the Trojan Olympics, wasn't it raining then?
True. Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah.
Jeez.
And so I talked to a couple players today. I talked to Isaiah Phelps, a linebacker, 2027 linebacker, 4-star. And I asked him kind of about what was the environment like with the rain and everything. And he said, it just made it more fun, because he's from Southern California. So it's not something they're used to. It's not something that's normal. So it made it, stand out even more. It was one of his first visits. So he was super excited about it. But just in general, besides the rain, the thing that stood out is just, how many USC commits for one were there, or USC targets, whereas I've been to this event for, I don't know, feels like the last 5 years or so, and you would be like, okay, there's one offensive lineman that USC's really on, or some guys that have offers, and I'd look at them and be like, no, that's not a guy you necessarily want. Like, maybe if he develops down the line, he might be something, but that's not a guy right now. Whereas this camp, you look at every guy that's like, that's a dude, that's a dude, that's a dude. It's either USC offer or USC commit. Talking, Samote Katuanga, you're talking Malik Brooks on the defensive line. Those two guys really stood out. Chase Denise wins the offensive line MVP. And Chase Denise is a guy that's raw still, but you saw, and I talked to him a little bit after he won it, and he said, yeah, the coaches really liked how he took coaching, and I think that's a great sign. He got better and better as the camp goes along, and that's, it's a small little sample size of, 2 hours or whatever that he's there at the camp. But I think that is something that will pay dividends, is something that you really like to see someone, be able to take some coaching and make a couple of adjustments that the coaches kind of give them. So he kind of stood out. Obviously, he was the offensive line MVP. Samote Katuanga was the defensive line MVP, so both USC commits are. Yeah,
I think Chris Trevino and Brandon Huffman tweeted the picture out of that. Like, oh, the two best linemen at the camp are USC commits. Like, that's not happened for a long time,
And then a couple other guys, and there's this picture here of Malik Brooks there with Chase Denise, the offensive lineman. Kasai Curry was another big body guy that USC is offered from Sierra Canyon. Richard Wesley shows up. Now, Richard Wesley is probably, as of right now, looks like he's probably going to try to go out of state. USC doesn't have as much traction there, but he shows up late. He just rolls in. He didn't even get warmed up, didn't run, did anything. and just strolls out there and wins 4 straight reps. And then they're like trying to get him some extra reps because I think they knew they were going to invite him to the Under Armour game later. It's like, oh, let's get a couple more over here. While they're like, at this time they were going 1 rep per, and they're like, no, we're going to go 2. We're going to go 3 with this guy. Just get him some extra reps on film. He's just dominating every rep. He's really good. So we'll see if USC can find a way to get back in that mix, as an edge rusher. The running backs, I mean, Deshaun Rideau just looks different than the rest of the running backs out there, and I don't think they were necessarily – I don't know a lot of the running backs in Southern California right now, but I don't necessarily think that there were a bunch of high-end guys that were there. Brian Bonner from Valencia, I want to say. He was not there today necessarily. Linebackers, again, there weren't a ton of guys. There were a couple of younger guys that really stood out. Phelps, I thought, looked good. And then I didn't get to stay for the entirety of the cornerbacks and wide receivers. But, I talked to Chris Trevino on the way in, and I really like Brandon Lockhart. I've seen him for 3 years now. And when he first committed to USC, I was just like, that is super raw. I saw him at Loyola game. He's a freshman or sophomore, and he's getting beat. And I'm like, this is the guy they're taking? But – and this is something that Gerard mentioned. We were talking about it with those tall, lanky cornerbacks, in particular that position, but tall, lanky, any position. You got to let them grow into their body. And he's grown into his body, and he moves so much better now. So he's a guy that stood out for me, just the fact that I've seen that progression year over year. And I'm not seeing him, every 7-on-7 camp like some of them. So the jumps really stand out a little bit more. He looked really good, just very fluid with his his ability to be rangy at that size is really, really fun, really intriguing prospect. A couple of the wide receivers stood out to Chris, and I'm blanking on names now, but a couple of guys.
It's a lot of dudes, no worries.
Yeah, USC has had guys like all over, and that was kind of the thing that stood out the most. Is that like every guy that we go to these camps, and even if you don't know them, and sometimes it's more fun for me to when I show up to camps to not know guys by face and just be like, I don't know who that is, but it's a dude.
He's good, yeah.
That's a dude. I mean, I've seen different guys. That Miller Moss, when he came to USC's first, when I saw him as a, sophomore in high school or something, I was like, I don't know who this kid is. He's got floppy hair, but he spins the ball really good. And so then it was like, all right, let's find out who he is. Saw him in a camp next week. And I was like, all right, this guy can play a little bit. And then, he blows up and becomes a recruit. So those are fun to me to look at. But every guy that you would look at and be like, that's a good body right there. This guy's moving really well for his size. You go, oh, who is that? I'd ask Chris or I'd ask somebody. Oh, yeah, I recognize that name because he's got an offer from USC.
Yeah.
Or it's a USC commit, which I would know those guys by face. But that's kind of the thing that was most prevalent is that the USC was talked about a lot, and USC was in on all the guys that you would be wanting them to be on. So,
which is very different than what we've seen in the past few years.
The only exception, the only position that I would say is an exception would be quarterback. There were some guys that were committed to other schools that I didn't really spend a ton of time looking at it. And even a couple of the guys that I asked some of the national guys, like, who's good here? Like, who's the guys? And, like, there are a couple of them I was like, I don't really like that throw motion. I'm really big on throw motion because you don't have a good motion, then – the ball doesn't come out consistently, and then the accuracy is off, and then you go from there. But, like, a couple of guys, and, one of the guys that did throw a really good ball was about this big. So, no one was linked. USC wasn't necessarily linked with any of the quarterbacks there off the top of my head. But, no one necessarily popped to really say, oh, that's a guy. Like Bryce Underwood, I saw him randomly he came to a New Jersey camp. Kid from Michigan ends up being the #1 overall player last year. And I was who is this kid? It's like, who is this? You can tell. And so they're like, oh, that's Bryce Underwood. I'm like, I don't know who that is off the top of my head. This is a year and a half ago, and I'll look it up. And I'm like, oh, okay, 5-star career. That makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense.
Well, recruiting, I mean, there's so much to talk about. And, yeah, there's been a lot of developments, and you can see the guys, whether they're visiting, obviously spring football practice is over, but you got to get a glimpse there. But last week, the assistant coaches media brunch, got to talk to all of the assistant coaches, all 12 of them, just to get their thoughts on spring, off-season developments. What do you guys, just immediate takeaways from how that event went?
Yeah, I was there. So Chris Trevino and Connor Morissette, the three of us were there from USCfootball.com. And I thought it was well done. We didn't get to talk to any of the assistant coaches during the spring. So we heard from Lincoln Riley Tuesdays and Thursdays. we were hoping to get like maybe Danton Lynn on Thursdays and maybe a random assistant coach every week, but that wasn't the case. But they made everybody available, and it was like a 2-hour format. The first hour was offensive coaches. So all 6 were available at once. It was in the John McKay Center, and they brought brunch out there. It was good. The food was good. There was like different eggs and biscuits and bacon and all kinds of stuff. The media, I tried to get there early and eat, and then we just started interviewing people. But you basically had an hour with the 6 offensive assistants. So Chris and Connor and I would split it up. I was going between Chad Savage and Dennis Simmons. I was receiver focused, inside receivers coach and outside receivers coach. But we filmed a lot, or if not all of them, a lot of the portions of all 6 interviews at once, and we kind of bounced around and talked to different guys to kind of get a feel for it. And then the second hour, same thing. The defensive players were there, defensive coaches were there, so 6 more. And we did a draft, and it was funny. And I picked first. I took Chad Savage with the first pick from the offensive side, but I picked third from the defensive side, and somehow I still got
Rob Ryan.
Like, I don't know how he flipped. Like, yeah, you want to talk to Danton Lynn, but dude, Rob Ryan, like, come on, like that was one I could just put the recorder down and then walk away, which I did, because I got Trevon Reed with my 4th pick because I just liked his energy and stuff. So I just sat. No one was talking to him, so I sat with Trevon Reed for like 20 minutes just talking. I had my recorder set up, just recording Rob Ryan because everyone was talking to him, and then I came over to him later. So that was I thought my strategy was pretty good, but getting like 20, 25 minutes with Trevon Reed, and super impressive guy. The relationship when we were talking about recruiting, him and Chad Savage, I probably got the 2 like ace recruiters on the staff, right? Like as far as like the young guys that are just, Savage came in from Colorado State, was recruiting Southern California. Everyone knew about him. Trevon Reed like was a 5-star recruit like not that long ago, and being able to talk to him about like relating to these kids and how both of those guys I think have a no nonsense approach to recruiting, and they're not going to tell you, hey, you're coming in to start. Like they're going to tell you, what it is, that like, here's how it's going to go, and you're going to have a chance, but we're not going to guarantee you playing time or startings positions or anything like that. And but Reed, having gone through this, fairly recently, and I think the way he relates to the kids, and just there's something about being a great recruiter. It's like you have to kind of be a politician where you remember people's names and the babies and whatever you got to do. You just have to like relate to people, and a lot of these guys on the staff did. And Savage and Reed, 2 of the guys I got to talk to, certainly did. You could see why it's not, the personnel staff certainly helps, but having like really good recruiters as well. I mean, you hear about Henny and Eric Henderson and stuff. I coached Aaron Donald. Like there's stuff like that. But younger guys like Savage and Reed too, just the way they're able to come in and relate to the players was really helpful. But those are a couple of guys that sort of like stood out to me. I know you guys watch a lot of the videos too, but overall I thought it was well done. Kudos to USC for putting it together and really giving us a lot of opportunity to talk to these guys. You can talk for an hour. If you want to sit with one guy and chat for an hour, you could have, but I thought it was well done.
Yeah, there's a lot of content to go through. You just want to make sure you didn't miss anything. Like you said, Ryan, you're kind of moving around between the coaches, splitting up, dividing and conquering. Just one thing on Coach Reed. I think aside from recruiting, just as a coach, he was describing kind of what his, outlook is and how he tries to approach his players. And he was like, I'm not going to be the guy that's like yelling, that kind of way. It's more like the silent whisper in your ear what you need to do. It's just kind of like, okay, I know if Coach Reed's telling me this, like, he's serious. He means business. I think he was also saying, like, he's going to break these players down, from a technical standpoint, maybe, like, mentally on the field, just to know what they're left with, what their foundation is, and he's going to build them up. And then he was saying once you build them up, after all of that, you're unstoppable at that point.
I thought one of the more interesting things was listening to people talk about Jakeem Stewart.
That's true, yes. There was a lot of good defensive line talk, I think, yeah.
I mean, Danton Lynn just talking about how, he's like, yeah, expecting to be good. Like, that was the anticipation. And he said, I look out there in the first day, and he looks like a junior in college, not a kid that's supposed to be a junior in high school.
Yeah.
I said, okay, that comment right there, because D'Anton Lynn is willing to praise you, praise his players, but he's not necessarily he doesn't, just BS it. Like it has to be legit. Like he doesn't just like when people get asked about, and if they're not like doing anything great, he just kind of brush it off. But like he was very effusive about the praise of Jakeem Stewart. So that tells me a lot. I think that takes my anticipation for Jakeem Stewart this season even up another notch. Because, okay, we'll see what he can do. How are they going to try to use him? All that type of stuff. And now it's like, I want to see that first game. I want to see, first drive that he's in. What does he do? All that type of stuff. Just the anticipation for his freshman season continues to grow for me, I think. So that was one of the things that really stood out to me, just hearing everyone talk about him. Same thing with Eric Gentry. I mean, we know Eric Gentry's good. We've been singing his praises for 3 years now at USC and how he changes and how different of a dynamic it is. But when you hear Rob Ryan say it, you hear D'Anton Lynn say it, okay, Shotgun may not know ball. Rob Ryan knows ball. D'Anton Lynn knows ball. We may not know what the hell we're talking about, but those guys definitely do. So when they say it, it definitely stands out even more so.
Yeah, they want to try to keep him healthy, so they said they might not use him as much, and they're, probably go 3 different linebackers. So, they might have 3 on the field at one time, so it'll be interesting. He did lead the team with 6.5 tackles for loss, despite
playing in 5 games.
Yeah, which is terrible. Like that's a horrible thing for your team to happen. If you have one guy play 5 of your 13 games and you still lead the team in tackles for loss, like that is bad.
Yeah,
but they love him, and if he's healthy, he should be a huge part of this.
Yeah, we had a doc, to give you guys behind the scenes here. We had a doc of just questions. Okay, I didn't get the notification that this was coming. If I'd have known, I would have tried to move my flight up potentially to go, just because it would have been awesome to get to chat with these coaches. But it's kind of a late notification thing that was going on. But we have a Google Doc that's like, all right, everyone throw your questions in there. If you wanted to ask, Gerard and I, Connor was there, but Gerard and I, anybody else that wasn't going to be at the event. So I'm just loading up questions. And one of mine was with Eric Gentry. How do you kind of utilize someone when there's the injury history? You want to be out there every single play because he's such a dynamic playmaker. But how concerned are you with how his body will hold up? So how much can you use him? How much do you want to use him? And I think that's interesting. They did do some stuff with 3 linebackers, especially early in the year before he got injured. We would see him out there with Mason Cobb, with Easton Mascarenas-Arnold. Now, they would sub them in and out, and, they would rotate those 3 into different combinations, but they would also use Eric Gentry out there as that Sam linebacker. We saw a little bit later they would use, against teams where they thought run was coming, heavier packages, that type of thing. They would use Anthony Beavers in the Sam role. So, it'll be interesting to see how they try to fully utilize him. Listening to them talk about how well he, they asked who would lead the team in sacks, and I think it was D'Anton Lynn, maybe it was somebody else, said, well, probably Eric Gentry.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, he's going to be attacking the quarterback. So the thing is, D'Anton Lynn is creative enough, and now also something else D'Anton Lynn was talking about, how there were things he couldn't do last year, which we all kind of knew that was the case, right? He's talking about, hey, there's defensive fronts we wanted to get into, we couldn't do. Just because they don't have the depth, they didn't have the bodies on the front. Well, now you can do more things and keep different packages. I mean, you keep the same lineup out there, but you can create different packages. Like, that defense becomes even more unique and even more difficult to game plan for. Because I thought there were games where USC didn't match up necessarily great, but they had good game plans and they were able to create some havoc in different areas. So I'm curious to see, or I'm excited to see what D'Anton Lynn throws out this year, and how you use Eric Gentry, how you use Jakeem Stewart and Devin Tompkins and these other guys. He's talked about, shifting from different positions and their versatility. A lot of things to be excited about, which when you go through spring, okay, we'll see. That type of thing. And the fact that you guys, I haven't been out here for practice, but the fact that you get to see 10 minutes of position drills and no real competition periods, you don't know anything. But if D'Anton Lynn has said it, and because of his track record, now all sorts of that there, because some coaches will, blow you up and fill up with steam and it not be true. But Dantlin's track record is he's going to be straight, and he has been. So I was really interested in what he had to say and the different things he said about the different packages that they can potentially use this year. Eric Gentry, Jakeem Stewart, those two guys in particular. So,
Riley, any other notes from the thing? I have some other ones too, but I don't know if there was other.
Sorry, just putting you on screen there.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, Eric Gentry, Coach Rob Ryan, he was talking about everyone, you kind of know. You can look at a player like that, you just know he's exceptional. And Shotgun, you said this, you want him to be on the field as many plays as he can be. But of course, given that injury history, it's just trying to finding that balance, because you do want to have the other guys come in and get some reps. But when you have someone like Eric Gentry, you don't want to take him off the field. And I think someone had asked Coach Ryan, like, how do you utilize a player like that? And he said the biggest thing is just keep the offense guessing. Like, make sure the other team doesn't know what Gentry is going to do. And I think when you have a player like that who can do so many different things, you just got to keep him on his toes and keep the offense on their toes.
Yeah, he's a unicorn where he can, get in passing lanes and he's like 6'6". So like, you make the quarterback think about, can I throw that ball because he's going to stick his arm out and bat it down, or he's going to come and like be in my face and sack me. So he is like a unicorn out there. So it's interesting. Defensive line, you had mentioned. I think the other thing is Keyshawn Silver. A lot of the comments were about him coming in and the Kentucky transfer just being like a pro. It seemed like he's going to be someone that can come in there and just be, just do his job, and he knows what to do. And then we love Jarrett, Jamil Jarrett. I think Eric Henderson, the quote was, he called him a big ball of clay. So like, but just looking at the defensive line in general, what we saw, it looked like it was like a different species than what you had last year.
Different species.
It was like, they just didn't look like the same thing, I was like, that's the same group of people that are doing that same job. Like, it just doesn't look like the same. So I thought that was kind of interesting with some of the defensive line talk. The running back talk was interesting too, with Wayman Jordan. It seems like he's kind of separated himself as far as like who's going to be the number one back, number one guy. But Eli Sanders, who we got to talk to on Tunnel Vision, his pass catching ability would come up a bunch. So I think potentially being like a third down back kind of guy that would come in and catch balls out of the backfield. I think that he's got speed, a dynamic kind of playmaker like that. And with Brian Jackson, I think a lot of talk about him being more of a short yardage kind of guy. So we'll see how it pans out. But that was sort of the vibe I was getting from the interviews there. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on running backs or wherever.
I mean, I didn't listen to the running backs one yet. But the thing that stood out to me from the spring and just reading everybody's stories and whatnot is that Waymon Jordan looks like he can be the bell cow.
Yeah.
And he is technically a freshman. Because of the NCAA JUCO ruling, he's a freshman. Now, he's also draft eligible. Because after this year, because he will be 3 years removed from high school, but he's a freshman. So if he doesn't go in the draft, you potentially have him for up to 4 more years. So that's an intriguing thing with the fact that looks like he's gonna potentially step in and be your number one right away.
Wow!
And the fact that you could have him for multiple years as a number one.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think other aspects. The offensive line, they kind of talked about a little bit. So the notes I had, so at right tackle, Tobias Raymond or Justin Tanau, Elijah Page going to be your left tackle, Lonnie Noah be your right guard, and then big general Jean-Ray Reed looking at center. But they like DJ Wingfield a lot, who was a center at Purdue, but looks like he's going to come over and play left guard where he didn't really play before. But like you were talking about some of the veteran transfers they've brought in, it worked really well in the first year and maybe not the second year, not as much. But I think now you're building up more of a pipeline with these younger guys. I think they have 17 offensive linemen on the roster, and you're not expecting some of those young guys to play. I think there was some as far as like Zach Hansen was talking about this, like they like what they're seeing from those guys, but you're not expecting those freshmen to come in and play. But I think there's a much better pipeline being built with offensive line recruits. And now seeing what 2026 is happening, it's gonna be a lot better. Where hopefully down the road you got more Elijah Page kind of guys than Jean-Ray Reed. It's great to bring in someone that could be a 1-year mercenary and a starter, but you'd love to have more Elijah Pages on the line where like, oh, your starting guard is this. They're not getting much of that, but I think now what you're trying to build through offensive line recruiting is that. But that's sort of what the kind of assessment of how the starting offensive line would go.
Yeah, the interesting thing there was DJ Wingfield, how effusive they were in the praise there, because as you mentioned, he's played right tackle, he's played right guard, but has not played on the left side. And I always think back to what Jonah Monheim said when he made the flip from right tackle to left tackle. He's like, it's completely different. Like, it's not just, you shift your body a little bit different or whatever. It's like it's learning a whole new language, basically.
Wow.
The way you kind of fire off the ball on a different leg and all that type of stuff. So it takes some time. So to hear the praise was really good. Really quick, back to Keyshawn Silver. The fact that everyone talked about how much he was a pro, and then they mentioned Gavin Meyer. Said, he came in similar to Gavin Meyer. And Gavin Meyer, what stood out to me about Gavin Meyer was nothing that he actually did physically. Because he was very flatline. Nothing really. He had a couple nice plays and whatnot. But he did his job every single time. And I talked with Eric Henderson before a game last year about, there was loss of Barry Alexander, replacing him and having Gavin Meyer being there. And I was like, the thing that kind of stands out to me when I'm rewatching the games or whatever, he's just every time he's doing what he's supposed to do. He's like, exactly. He's like, now I just got to get all of them to do that. Yeah. Talking about the entire defensive line.
Yeah.
So, if Keyshawn Silver comes in and the size he has, if he can do that, that definitely stands out. And now you have that true nose tackle that opens up so many more options for what Denton Lynn can call, what your Devin Tompkins, what Braylon Shelby, Anthony Lucas, all those guys coming off the edge. Devin Tompkins can play inside too, but the guys coming off the edge, it just opens up more things because that guy's going to lock it down. So now you can, you have a little bit more flexibility in what you can do on the outside as well.
Yeah. One other one I have quick, I don't know if you have any other notes, Riley, you want to bring up, but for Jaden Mayava, Luc Weaver said, the quote is, we're very, very happy with Jaden. We know he's going to contribute to get better. He's going to continue to challenge himself, and we're going to challenge him. We certainly feel very good about where we're positioned right now at the quarterback position. And if you heard Lincoln Riley during spring, whenever we'd ask about it, it was like Jaden Mayava was the dude. Like, he's the guy. We had thoughts maybe they would go explore the portal and bring somebody in. Obviously, they didn't do that. I think we heard some really good things about Hassan Longstreet and, having Sam Heward in there with the veteran experience. And I think the staff feels pretty confident that all three of those guys could. I think Lincoln Riley said, like, we can win with all three of those guys. But if there was any question about who the number one dude is, I think that's been answered in the last couple of weeks from talking to Lincoln Riley and the assistant coaches this week.
Which makes me kind of wonder.
Okay.
Wonder what?
Because when Caleb Williams was here, did they throw that praise on him? That's the guy? No. Oh, there's going to be a competition. And you're like, you're going to start Caleb Williams. He just won the Heisman. Like, we're going to have a competition. And then suddenly, a guy that, is it actually going to be a competition? Where does it stand? All that type of stuff. I don't know. That's the guy. Suddenly the tune changes a little bit. So that makes me go, we'll see.
The shotgun conspiracy theory.
I'm just saying, we'll see.
And we got to talk to Jaden a couple times during spring. And I think Connor and I talked about this on Instant Analysis. The biggest thing, the mentality. Like, how do you go into the season knowing you're QB1 without boosting the ego too much, but also just going in with that natural confidence? Because when you're quarterback and you drop a play, like you mess up, you have to snap back so fast. The entire offense is leaning on you. And so he's admitted, one of his greatest weaknesses is that he's so hard on himself. Yeah. And so that concerns me a little bit. Just obviously he's done a lot of work in the spring, just decision making, and that helps build confidence. But what is it going to look like on that first game?
That's a good point. I mean, we've seen the ups and downs. I mean, the first 3 quarters of the Texas A&M game in the Las Vegas Bowl was like it's not going to get a lot of work
ideal.
On your reel's not getting a lot of highlight tapes plays from that. And playing pretty well against Notre Dame until you throw a pair of pick sixes. So I think I think if he can, as long as the criticism isn't overwhelming yourself, where you're not even allowing yourself to enjoy the wins, because you got it. You kind of have to have a short memory. You don't want to repeat mistakes. You don't want to throw into double coverage, 3 times in a row, thinking that, you get 3 picks every time you're going to make it better. But you can't be so hard on yourself that it doesn't allow you to grow as a quarterback and make those big plays, because you're going to have to go off script sometimes, and he's athletic enough where we can see him do that. So that would be the only concern I would have, is just don't limit yourself because you're so worried about making a mistake. He's more of the gunslinger guy, can go out there and make the big play, make the bad play. It's up to the coaching staff to kind of rein him in and just limit some of the bad plays, because the good plays have been good, but like the bad plays, those are the ones that will kill you.
Yeah, and that's the new calling card phrase for the coaching staff is it's not about how good their good plays are, it's about how bad their bad plays are.
Yeah.
How many times did that get thrown out there this spring? That was definitely something that was spoke a lot in meetings and whatnot. But yeah, he's too harsh on himself. He's got to learn. He's got to mature in that aspect and learn. At that position, you're not allowed to do that, and that's part of that position. So maybe you go outside the box and you go, all right, this team right here, he's going to come over. He is going to bitch you out when you make a mistake. You don't get to do it. You don't get to be bad on yourself, but he is going to come over and scream at you in your face, whatever it takes, to do something different. And be like, all right, you're not allowed to be sad about it. You're not about to be upset at yourself because someone else is already upset for you in that regard. But they've got to do something and it's about his maturity. Can he take this next step? And as you mentioned, if you're more confident in your abilities and you're more confident in your decision making there, then you're more likely to bounce back quicker from your mistake. Like, that one got tipped or whatever. No, that's not on me. Or you're like, you know what? I got that. All right, I saw what they did. All right, I'm gonna make a pay next time. Yeah. Like that type of confidence, the arrogance that you need to have to be really good as a high-profile athlete, you got to have a little bit of it. And so that's something that will come with his maturity, and we'll see if he's ready to take that next step. And we don't really know that until we watch a full scrimmage. Oh, wait, we're not going to do that. So until we see him against Missouri State, and whenever down the line, the first 3, 4, 5 games, whenever he throws that first pick, all right, where's his head at as he walks off the field? Is he here? Is his chin up here? Or is his chin down here? That'll tell me a lot.
I mean, at least he knows this is his weakness. He's acknowledged it. Like, he knows it's a problem. It's not just like something that's going on underneath and he's just being hard on himself. Like, he recognizes it, and I think now is the time. Like, this is something that you can fix before season comes.
Hey, we can all recognize our weaknesses. Ryan's is donuts. He recognizes that.
I had a big cinnamon roll with icing on it today after making eggs and bacon for breakfast. So, like, whatever.
The first part of the solution is admitting you have a problem. So,
the funny thing about with the you got to make your bad play, like limit your bad plays. I mean, you see it like any sports that you guys have played, and golf it comes in pretty well. Like, if you're whatever, like basketball, there's like sometimes you're a little bit better. Golf, you can be like, look like you're really good one day and look like you've never played the sport the next day. So it's like your scores are going to depend on how, like, limiting your really bad plays. You don't want to get a 9 on a hole, like get a bogey or maybe a double bogey or something, but don't get a quadruple like that. Those ones screw you. So you can't have the really, really bad plays. And, it's great to have a high ceiling, but if you can keep that range where it's all good or pretty good or above, then you're doing better. If it drops down to like 99-yard pick six, like 2 drives in a row, then you're like, oh man, like that's gonna kill you.
Yeah, and it's also the difference in the game. I mean, baseball is a game of failure where you can go up and you strike out 3 times, but you hit a home run in the 4th at bat. Okay, it works. Quarterback, you can't do that.
No.
Like, there's certain positions or certain sports where it's minimizing your mistakes is more important than maximizing your biggest plays. And so, I mean, that's another way to say what they've said all spring. I just got more creative than just repeating the same phrase over and over and over. But yeah, that's the biggest thing he's got to learn, he's got to grow, and that is the key to this season with the players they brought in, with addressing. I mean, even with Chasen Johnson, kind of addressing a need at cornerback, like. This season actually feels like it all comes back to the quarterback. Not like we've said maybe the offensive line. I still got question marks there. But, in the last 3-4 years, we've gone, there's still a big weakness there. Maybe they'll be okay. But the defensive line is super thin. Barry Alexander's got to make a lot of plays. Okay, well, Barry Alexander's gone from the team now. Who's going to make plays? Oh, wait, how many sacks did they have last year? Barely any, because they didn't have defensive linemen that could get to the quarterback. And that was a issue for them, and that's why they wore down in the fourth quarters. They couldn't stop the run to begin with, and they didn't get enough sacks to create those negative plays. But that's something we could have pointed out before the season. This season, looking at the roster right now, and, hey, we'll see who makes it to opening day without there being a significant injury or something. You knock on wood and hope that doesn't happen, but it is football. But you look at it now and you go, this roster doesn't have those type of weaknesses. There's areas where they're better. There's areas where they're not as strong, but not just the glaring weaknesses of one injury and you're done, or that group is just not very talented. So I think that then takes it all back to the quarterback position and what the quarterback can do. So, and does Lincoln Riley help him out this year by running the ball more?
No, I think you definitely have to do that. Really quick, we're like a little bit over an hour into the show. I'm seeing how many people we have. We got some people watching live on Facebook, and we have like 250 people watching live on YouTube. We haven't had any live calls. If you want to call in, 5124-TUNNEL. We're going to have one more topic, and then we're going to do some questions and stuff. We'll get out of here. Game 7. Yeah, the Warriors look like they're going to win. They have a minute left. But yeah, if the Warrior game's about to end, if you were watching that, 5124-TUNNEL. If you want to call in, just
call in.
Call in. We'd love
I got to figure this out.
Yeah, we got to try. We got to try Riley out. I have all the new things happening, so we'd love to get a call in here. We appreciate that, and we appreciate everyone watching live. And if you're watching on the replay and stuff, that's great too. It's been a lot of fun. Riley's doing a great job, so we're gonna I don't want to praise her yet. We'll wait till we finish the show. I think she's been doing good. The other one, and unless you guys have anything else on this, we want to talk about the USC making a move, strength and conditioning wise.
Yes.
So Benny Wiley,
Interesting timing.
Yeah, comes over from Oklahoma, and USC's going another direction. We got the email this week that they are going to move on with the head of, I forget the exact title, like head of football performance,
Director of Football Sports Performance.
Director of Football Sports Performance, yeah. So he came over from Oklahoma, and there's fewer and fewer people. There's really not a lot left, people that have come over from Oklahoma. And, I think the timing's a little bit interesting just because you've just gone through winter workouts and spring football. Now you make the move, but with the way the portal is and all that, I don't know if there's a perfect time to make a move like this. It looks like USC made a run. Derek Owings from Indiana, a couple of different reports about that, but he did sign I think ESPN reported that he signed a 3-year extension with Kirk Cignetti at Indiana. So it looked like USC's already looking to replace him, bring him in. You got some time because things are finals and all that stuff going on.
In active workouts right now, I don't.
Yeah, so you have a little bit of time, and then you're going to kick off the summer workouts. But I like Benny Wiley. A lot of times fans get upset when if a bunch of guys get injured, they're like, blame the strength and conditioning coach, or with USC having some fourth quarter collapses. Blame the strength and conditioning coach. And I'm no strength and conditioning expert. I mean, we had, back in the day, we had Aaron Osmus sit in this chair and we talked to him about it. And if you remember, that was during the pandemic. And at the time, I felt like he was more of a lift. He was the
Eat steaks, lift heavy.
Yeah, it was like, it was like he was someone that wanted you lifting weights all the time. And pandemic-wise, you had to I asked him about, hey, you want to do some how are you going to do some body weight stuff for these guys? And he was looking at me like it was a foreign concept. Like, no, you need to lift heavy weights. It was like, go push a Volkswagen. And I'm like, okay, he probably wasn't the ideal strength coach for a pandemic when guys didn't have weight rooms to do. He was more of a, here's how you do it in the weight room. Like, well, you had to shift. I'm not sure what, we saw Benny Wiley have the team smaller and faster, and that was what Alex Grinch wanted. And then last year, shifting to bigger and stronger and more athletic, and they did that too. But he was doing, I think, what he was being asked to do. Yeah. But results-wise, I don't know. I mean, I think at some point you have to say, all right, we're going to go in a different direction. And from what I heard from people at USC, is they liked him and they liked the job he did, but they just felt like they needed to go in a different direction. I wrote a bunch of stuff in the War Room recently about it, if you want to go check that out over at uscfootball.com. But USC going another direction. Haven't hired anyone yet. Like they said, we heard they made a run at the guy from Indiana, and we'll see what happens there. But I don't know. I kind of think they'll make some more inquiries into different people, and the way they've been investing money, I don't think that's going to be an issue. They're going to make some runs at guys. If you're going to go make a run at a Big Ten guy, Big Ten has a lot of money because of the TV contract, so you can keep people around. Owings was with Cignetti for a while because he was at James Madison before he came over there. So curious to see kind of where they go. But one of the last, remnants of Lincoln Riley's staff in Oklahoma is now gone, and they're going to go in a different direction.
Still a couple more guys. I think
not that many, but yeah.
I think one thing that potentially could be there, you've had a ton of new voices come in, and they, from different programs, from all over, from the different staffs, and said, this is what worked for us, this is what didn't work, blah, blah, blah. But maybe just because the strength and conditioning staff is so hands-on in the offseason, that maybe you just wanted a different voice.
Yeah.
So because Benny Wiley delivered results. They asked him to be small, they were small. They asked him to be small and quick, they did that. Super flexible, yes. They asked him to bulk up last year, they bulked up.
Yeah.
So you can't look at him and be like, well, he's just not getting the job done in the weight room for the guys. Like, well, he's doing what he's been asked to and doing a good job there. And he's well liked by the players. So, that's, part of being the strength and conditioning staff. You're going to be the ones with them all the time. So
they are with them more than anybody. Yeah, they're with them more than the coaches are. Yeah.
Especially in the offseason. So I think that maybe they just want a different voice and maybe trying to go, look for a championship voice.
Yeah, we'll see with the move there. But, yeah, like you said, he was well-liked. People liked him there. But at some point, can you look at the fourth quarters and say, hey, they weren't finishing strong enough, whatever it was? I don't know. So, but they're going to make a move, and we'll see what.
No, you can look at the fourth quarter and say they didn't have any depth.
Yeah.
Oh, how many snaps has that guy played this game or if you had a too deep on the actual defensive line, did he have to play 60 snaps or could he play 40 and the next guy played 20 if you had more talent?
Yeah. I think the overall thing is this team was 13-11 the last 2 years, and that's not good enough. And you're gonna get rid of guys.
Yep.
There's gonna be generals are gonna be removed. You're gonna get rid of the president. You're going to get rid of Lincoln Riley? Well, his contract is not going to allow that. So any of the people under him are fair game at this point. Yep. And I think now when you're looking at, we'll see who they end up hiring. You fixed so much on this program. They're just everything around Lincoln Riley has been improved. Like you couldn't ask for anything more if you're Lincoln Riley. Like everything's been upgraded. Now you got to win. You're the head man. It's going to be up to you. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on him this year to win. But the resources around him, if you should be able to win with all of the upgrades that have been made.
Yeah, in his statement, he was talking about positioning the team for a national championship caliber team. Like, that's what they're trying to do. And we've seen that a lot just in the spring and last season, these coaches mentioning national championship. You look at last season, nobody would be like, oh, what are you kidding? But then you see all these developments, and the fact that the coaches are more confident, they're more comfortable even just speaking it out into existence, I think there has been a significant emphasis. Obviously, we see the front office stacked that, assistant coaches, recruiting, and it's a couple years, couple more seasons away, but just you see all these little increments slowly pushing the team towards that. And now you have no other excuse. Like, if this season is a fail, who are you going to blame?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, Riley. And I know a lot
Dennis
of
Simmons and Clark Stroud are the only ones left from the Oklahoma.
Yeah, there's not that many people left. I know, and people in the chat, and I think if you're a USC fan, I don't want to tell you what to think or whatever. I mean, I try to do sometimes, but just you can think however you want. If you want to be a doom and gloom person, go ahead. Like, there's some people feel comfortable with that. If you're going to be like everything's amazing, go ahead. Like, however you want to be a fan, you can be a fan. But for the ones that are like trying to be more reasonable, and you're like, I'm really worried because like there was recruits from last year and then they decommitted and stuff. I feel like this is one you can sink your teeth into. This is like a a great meatball sandwich that's just like perfect for you, and you're like exactly the ratio of cheese and sauce that you want. You could bite into this one and not feel bad about it, like because they're recruiting at a super high level, and you know the reason why. It wasn't because you hired one assistant and like got some guys excited because you used to coach Aaron Donald. This is a systematic approach to making recruiting better, and it's better. So I feel like what we're seeing, the work being done behind the scenes to make everything better, just like Riley was talking about, is real. And they were really close in a bunch of games. Should you have lost to Maryland? And no, you shouldn't have lost those games. And sometimes that's just like whatever coach speak. We were talking about a play here away, here or there. They actually were like if you just got a little bit better, you could have been like 9-3 last year, which whatever. That's significantly better. The schedule's not that difficult. I mean, there's some tough games, and the way they lost games last year, you can't say any game is like you can overlook because Maryland had one win in the Big Ten, and it was USC. So you can't overlook any game. But yeah, you got to go on the road and play Notre Dame and Oregon, like two, playoff teams. And Nebraska is probably going to be better. Illinois looks good. They're a top 25 team. There's a bunch of teams that you should be like sort of head-to-head with, and maybe if you win those games, you're going to get a lot of credit for winning and then being able to be highly ranked and all that kind of stuff. And maybe you win at an Oregon or at Notre Dame, and that's going to change everything. So I feel like, yes, I get it that you're like worried about what could go wrong, but they've done a lot of work in this offseason. I think that's real. Like it's tangible. This isn't, putting lipstick on a pig. Like they've done the work behind the scenes. And I feel like then if you want to like have optimism for a season, knowing that they've kind of fallen on their faces 2 years in a row, I'm okay with you. You have my blessing to have some optimism. I think that I'm going to have an optimistic view going into the season too.
I'm going to look for some questions in the chat. So everybody,
Perfect.
If you're watching, drop them in there.
Get that call. We haven't called it. 512-4
I know, or some calls. We did get one comment. I nominate Ryan for strength and conditioning director. Any thoughts on that?
No.
Suddenly, all the players are going to have to
here.
do 1,000 push-ups a day.
I do the F45. Yeah, I would do the 100 push-ups a day, and which I've not been doing that for a while. Like, started to hurt my shoulder. For years, though, I was doing 100 push-ups a day. Like, go to bed, and I'm like, oh, crap, I haven't done my push-ups yet. Like, that kind of sucked. But I would have them do F45 workouts, like spin classes. That probably wouldn't be great for football.
We got a question. How big a factor in USC's recruiting success is the new Bloom Football Center? How is it looking?
So I've heard, I put something in the war room too. There was, they did some big donors. They got a tour, like a hard hat kind of tour. And I remember getting that for the Galen Center like years ago when that opened. Going through, what?
God, you're old.
I'm pretty old, yeah. That was like the new thing. Like
Back in the day.
Instead of like the sports arena, but yeah, and I heard really positive things that like it's just massive. And, it's going to be something that facilities aren't like necessarily game changers, but like this is going to be very helpful for USC recruiting. And it's kind of not going to be the best for us because we get to see all the players going to practice. Now they're just going to come right from that building right to the practice field. But there will be, it's not going to be like the John McKay Center that's completely sealed off from the public. They will have a public viewing. So I think the Heismans and stuff are going to go over there. They will have like a floor that's you can go in and use, and then the rest of it will be for the football players and the football staff. But they needed, when they built the McKay Center, it was almost out of date, like right away. They had no idea that support staffs were going to get as big as they are. There's just not enough space for all that. So it'll be interesting to see how they move things around with the athletic department and how they're going to utilize the McKay Center, which is some really good space, but it just wasn't good enough for full football and all sports because football was just, they had like office for one analyst, and now you have like, so many of them. So from what I've heard, pretty spectacular. I mean, it's a massive. You've seen Riley. It's a massive undertaking as far as construction goes.
Yeah, I talked to some of the baseball coaches, and they're over there practicing after construction is finished, so they don't have to. Otherwise, they'd have to wear hard hats while they practice. Which I said, you guys should do that. Be a cool little gimmick. But they're like, I was like, oh, what's the new building looking like? They're like, it's like I don't remember exactly the adjective that was used, but it's like gigantic.
Yeah.
It's just huge. Like
Yeah.
the fact that they're like, someone said it was a skyscraper.
Okay.
It's not a skyscraper.
I wouldn't go
but-
that far,
Not
but
quite.
But when you're standing over beside it and you're looking at this, they're like, it's just so big compared to, what you would maybe anticipate when they say, oh, they're going to build a new building over there. And baseball is obviously looking forward to it getting done, because then once that gets done, they turn full force into Dado working on it. So they're excited about the opening of that facility for sure.
Yeah.
also on the topic of recruiting, a couple people asking, what needs to happen for this class of 2026 to stay? Just look at this next season. How many games? Is it a matter of how many wins, or just what do you guys think?
Yeah, I saw that one of the chats in there talk about the number of wins, and people saying 9 or 10. Like, I don't feel like you need to. I think ideally you would like that. You'd get like 9 or 10 wins, and everyone feels good about the class. But this isn't a class I think that's put together based on, well, you're gonna you got to win, right now. I think they should win right now. They should, get like 9 wins or so. But if it's like a 6-6 season, like there's going to be some questions, and there's probably going to, I think there's potential bad there. But if it's like an 8-win season that you're like close, lost close game, Oregon on the road and Notre Dame on the road, and sort of like this bad luck stuff, Illinois beat you on the road or whatever, and some good teams. I don't think it's like the class falls apart. I think this is still like you might lose a guy or two, but I think this class is based on more than just, okay, they're going to, they need to win this many games.
Much better opportunity to keep the class together because it is a local class.
Yes.
And, local. Gerard has discussed this in great detail and also very well. I'm just going to give you the quick synopsis. When you're local, everyone around you say, oh, you're going to USC? Oh, that's great, man. That's great. You're going to USC. Yeah, you guys will turn it around. When you're in Florida or Georgia and you're committed to USC and they're struggling, you're really going to go over there to USC? What are you going to go all the way across the country to lose for? You can just go down the street and lose if you're going to do that. So I think that's a big difference. So I think that the fact that the primary base of the recruiting class is local, and the camaraderie they already have. The fact that they are all, the relationships they are building already, and Chad Bowden, that's by design. When I saw it out there in Mission Viejo, different position groups rooting on different people from different areas of Southern California, that really stood out to me. And how they were kind of going about each other, dapping each other up and stuff like that. They're already building that. Plus, in this day and age of NIL, classes do not necessarily fall apart just because of wins, losses.
Yeah.
It is more likely to happen if you're losing, but this will keep people together.
Yeah.
You've seen that in Miami when they run the football against Georgia Tech when you shouldn't even be you should be taking a knee. Yeah. Still kept that class together. Still got I think a 5-star offensive lineman that USC was after, and you're like, why would a 5-star offensive lineman still go? Oh, because one, Mario Cristobal coaches offensive lineman, but also because money talks.
Yeah, and Larry's question, and good avatar, Larry, on YouTube there. I like it. But I think it's just look at the top of the class. Like, I think you don't want to lose a guy like Pepe. You don't want to lose Tom. Like some of especially the big offense, any of the linemen that would go to Oregon, I think that's like must gets for USC. Like, don't lose a dude that could go to Oregon. So that Oregon was in on. So
I mean, Tom's the biggest one.
Yeah.
And Pepe, those are the two prime ones, just because those are positions where you've struggled to recruit consistently.
Yeah.
Well, Carlos Hernandez wants to know.
Oh, Carlos.
Yeah. With the addition of Pepe and other coveted targets still on the board, how many O linemen is too many?
At this point, it doesn't seem like there's ever a number that's too many right now. And you wonder if some of them are going to shake loose.
Yeah, there might be
later.
some shuffling.
But also, when you have someone like Pepe versus someone like Chasen, and I think that's the highest and lowest ranked, but whoever the lowest ranked guy is, doesn't matter who it is. The lowest ranked guy that's a 3-star, you are not recruiting him to come in and play right away. Pepe, you are. So you're going to create two different classes. Any 5-star that's coming in is probably not going to redshirt. So now suddenly he is going to be a year ahead of the guy that's redshirting. So now they're in different classes. So you can have an 8-man class where 4 of them are playing and 4 of them are redshirting, and really you've created 2 different classes of 4. Now, if they did this again next year and you bring in 8, 9 guys again, now suddenly it's – and also with the 105-man roster, how is that going to change things? So there's some different elements that are at play, but I think that that people always look at it like, "Oh, this class is massive." Well, the coaches could be looking at it as play right now guys and redshirt guys at the same time.
Yeah, and I think you got to give props to Zach Hansen, who's doing a really nice job coming in there. So he's been, I think from the people I've talked to behind the scenes, they're really happy with what he's been able to do.
And back to my point about separating them, we've seen in the past when there's a really strong class, like this class is really strong as far as defensive backs. So is next year's, I didn't get to stay at the camp today to get a better assessment, but if it's not, then you might want to get a couple more guys or one more guy this year, knowing that maybe we'll take one less next year. Because we think, okay, well, this guy a redshirt, now we drop him into that class, in our mind, because that class is not quite as talented. But this guy, if he was in next year's class, we would definitely want him. So you kind of balance it that way, where you may take more in one class versus the next class if one class is more talented, especially in Southern California.
Coach Hansen was asked last week, with that scholarship roster limit, or roster cuts, scholarships, of course, going to as many as school wants to give out, 105. He said 20 is ideal on the O-lineman. You want that 4 deep, of course, is ideal, but then also you want to have at least the 3 deep for the scout team. This is all what he was saying at the media brunch. You guys agree?
Yeah, no, I think they're about 17-ish right now, and they've been kind of lighter on the numbers in recent years.
And that's a big thing is 15 gets you a scout team, as Riley was saying, but offensive linemen get banged up.
Yeah.
So you get to 20, okay, you may have 4 or 5 guys get nicked up or whatever. We still have a scout team of all scholarship guys versus using walk-ons. So now you're giving that defensive line a better look. So in that regard, the question just becomes when you have that many is attrition. You lose someone like Amos Talalele who has some talent as a guy that has a future. Is he going to stick around if he's not playing? You lose some guys. If you start recruiting the 5 stars and 4 stars and 93 stars, well, those 4 stars why am I not playing right now?
Yeah.
I should be in that mix, right? And suddenly they want to look somewhere else. So you got to sometimes you got to balance and don't always take the most talented guy. That seems strange, right? That seems odd. But if that most talented guy is either going to cause an issue if he's not playing, or just you think, this guy's going to want to play right now. And they tell you. Some players will tell you, I got to play as a freshman. If I'm not playing as a freshman, I got to go somewhere else. They tell you that, and you go, we would love to have you, but you're not going to fit in right now for us. So if you don't think that if you came in and you ended up redshirting, you don't think you would stick around, that we might need to go with someone else.
This is just kind of future projections, but Ryder Lyons, he's class 26, but then with the mission, 27 more realistically. He's gone on an official visit here, Michigan, Oregon. What do you think the O-line recruits coming in, is that kind of a safety blanket for potentially securing that commitment from Ryder?
Knowing that you're going to have a really good offensive line.
Yeah, knowing you're protected.
I think it helps, having something like that. That'll be a really interesting recruitment too. Like you talk about stacking, because he might just be 27, and you kind of you'd like to get a quarterback in every class, and you get Longstreet this year, and then if you get 26, 27, and kind of pile them up there. But I think if you're showing improvement on the offensive line, especially not just rent-a-guys, actually building a class like that, I think it's something like that. That's something that the quarterback recruits okay, 5-star offensive tackle coming in. I like that. I'm going to be able to play with him.
Yeah, and they're going to look at it, and you want to build that around the quarterback too, so they have that camaraderie. If you really like your quarterback, you make that little tiny extra effort to make sure he doesn't get hit. It's true. And so they have Jonas Williams in the 26 class. Potentially Ryder Lyons would be added to the 26, but realistically would come in 27. So, yeah, it would be a great chance to add to this dynamic class they already have if they were able to get Ryder Lyons too. They would, if that were the case, if you were to pop today or whatever, then USC would be the only school in the country with 3 top 10 players, because they're the only school right now with 2 top 10 players with Pepe and Xavier Griffin.
Nice.
Well, we're pushing an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think we can call it. We appreciate all the questions and everything. We didn't get a call. Oh, well.
No,
that's okay.
next time. Guys, I'm ready, I swear.
Yeah, but it was great. Nice work. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. From me, I like being the former engineer, the technical standpoint. I like the way things were running through. We'll kind of go over some of the things that were going on. But hopefully it sounded good to everybody. It looked good to everyone. You got some good information about what was going on. It was great to have Shotgun back in town. And great to have Riley doing her first
We'll do
foray
a nice
into
overhead view.
tunnel vision. Yes. Thank you, Riley. Good job. And hope
Real quick,
Yeah.
the USC men's tennis team, about 30 minutes ago, finished an 8-hour match
What?
to defeat San Diego 4-2 to reach the NCAA tournament round of 16.
Wow.
Oh,
I
nice.
saw those tweets, so I want to throw it out there. And since they had a great day, what about USC baseball winning the Crosstown Showdown rivalry series over UCLA, a ranked UCLA team that came in, I think, 13th or 14th in the nation. So huge series win for USC. They lost the opener, had bases loaded, couldn't get a hit. Come back, and that's very heartbreaking, deflating.
Yeah.
Could wear on them.
Get
And
two
I told a
wins.
couple people yesterday before the game, I'm like, they could be in trouble if they don't win a game in the series because their other big matchup against Oregon, they got swept. So if they got swept by UCLA, their resume was looking pretty thin. Instead, they bounced back, get a big win yesterday. Caden Aoki was really good. And then today, they fall down 3-0, come back. Freshman Augie Lopez is a Bruin killer. He had his first career home run against the Bruins earlier this year. He had 2 hits and an RBI, I think, yesterday. Today, he has a bases-clearing double. He hits a homer as well. And he told me after the game, he said his mom went to UCLA. So I was like, I don't know if that's powering his abilities. But huge series win for USC to bounce back and get that one. Really, I won't say locks it up, but all but locks up an NCAA tournament appearance in my
Is that
mind.
8 straight series wins? Is
8
that-
straight series wins. First
Wow.
time, I think they said in since 78.
Wow.
That's
Jeez.
happened. Obviously, the Big Ten's a little bit easier than the Pac-10 used to be, but that is still an incredible accomplishment there. They will go to Michigan State next week. If you get a chance, watch that on Big Ten Network because Michigan State's got a 6'7" left-hander who's put on 50 pounds since he got to college, and he's going to be a first-round pick or second-round pick in a couple months.
Cool.
Well, Shotgun, thank you for adding that because the chat was begging for some baseball insight.
There was someone who said, "Can we get on Twitter?" Asked, "Can we get 5 minutes of baseball talk?" So
There you go.
We got a couple
minutes.
of baseball talk, but
Oh.
it was really good stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
thanks everyone for tuning in. Facebook, YouTube. If you're listening later on the podcast or watching the replay stuff, and we do, way to go, Riley. Nice work. We appreciate
Thanks,
you coming on.
guys.
nice debut.
She's going to go back to Atlanta, so we'll have
Yeah.
to get her on. Coming. Are you going to come back in the summer at all, or
I'll be back in June.
Okay, so
Yep.
maybe we'll do some off-season shows, and get her involved in like some of the House of Victory ones.
Yeah.
We've been doing those too, so keep watching our YouTube channel because we've got the House of Victory exclusive interviews with these players for long periods of time. They've been a lot of fun. We had some really fun interviews, Big General and Ja, and but Big General was fun. There was a lot of fun ones and stuff though, but good
Yeah.
stuff.
That'll wrap up Tunnel Vision. Till next time, guys.